So this is an interview with Julia, a adoptive parent, Diane, an adoptee, and Vin, the adoptee.
I mean, but see, this is real life, and nobody wants to talk about it, but it just is. It is.
So
I'm sorry. I know that I'm fucked up. Nobody has to tell me that. I know.
Everybody's fucked up.
Everyone's fucked up. So on that note, Julie is going to ask us some questions.
Okay, so one of them, if we're talking about how everybody's fucked up, one of them is, some people are like, how do I get a kid without trauma? I'm like, that doesn't exist. You have trauma. But how do we deal with the trauma? Like, we talked about this a little bit earlier, like you don't just go, no, you're fine. But what are some things that help a child, or even an adolescent and so on, know that it's okay for them to talk to you? And then you're not going to take offense or get upset or brush them aside kind of thing.
Diane?
I would answer that with making yourself 100% emotionally available to the child.
I would say always tell them that it's okay to be honest and truthful and not be judgmental.
Yeah. I think, and also like for me, just from my kids, it's just like, I am not going to be offended by anything you have to say to me. Your feelings are your feelings and they're allowed. Like if you want to talk about your birth mother, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to be sad. I'm not going to go cry in a corner like, why doesn't she love me? No, it has nothing to do with me and our relationship. The other thing comes up all the time is disclosure. When, how, I know I'm like, hey, open book from the beginning. So you can, normalize. But a lot of people do, or like, well, my kid's 9 now. Should I tell them? And obviously I'm like, you should have already told them, but let's talk about disclosure and how much, if there's something that is, I'm just going to say it, like rape or incestual or something like that. When do you tell them about that part? Do you just kind of like not say anything until a certain age? I mean, obviously you wouldn't tell a 2-year-old, hey, you're a product of rape, so how do you deal with those things?
That's a tough one. I honestly...
It is, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I think this is going to require a little bit more than a short answer. I think it's age appropriate. However, I think it should be something that should be should be introduced. So when the topic does be brought up, that they're not estranged with that concept. Yeah.
Right.
Diane?
That's a good point.
Exactly. And I believe that like the product of rape or non-consensual, however we want to word this, there's a way that you tell a child that is respectful and not demeaning, because we adoptive parents have to remember that whatever they say to their child and about the situation is that child absorbs it as a direct reflection of who they are to the outside world. But I do have to agree with Vin that there is, from the beginning, that gradual letting them know that where they came from. And I feel like when you're connected to that child and the child wants to know, or they bring it up, or because adopted children were inquisitive. We ask a lot of different questions. Always be truthful. But there's a respectful way to tell a child that they were a product of rape without saying the word rape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to add to that hypothetical situation that it was that, do not ever
Exactly.
shame them. Do not ever say that we know as adults that it's a horrible thing and that it's terrible. But as a child that went through being raped, and as an adult that went through being raped over a long period of time, all different stages of my life, I've been raped. And I felt every single time when I was to say the word, I felt like I was disgusting. I felt like the person who would love me, if I ever found someone that loved me, if they knew about that, they wouldn't want to touch me. They wouldn't want anything to do with me because I'm disgusting because of that. I'm damaged goods. It's okay.
It doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Exactly. The sins of the biological mother and father, the child should never have to pay the price.
But it's not just that.
For
it's not just the
their decision.
biologicals. It could happen with
Right.
anyone. So that whole concept of rape in general, I mean, they could be in an orphanage and be raped. They could be in school and be raped like I was. You know, they could be out of school and be raped like I was. It doesn't matter what it is. It's that whole concept of, we already have a complex of no one can love me because my own parents didn't love me. But then when you add in the complexity of, I've been raped, so no one's going to love me because I've been raped. So there's so many complexities on top of complexities on top of so much trauma that's carried over all those complexities. And you need to understand that, and you need to address it, not be ashamed of it, and you have to really, really stress that it is not their fault. What happened is not their fault. Because I know that those demons in my head have always said to me, it's your fault. You didn't do something and this is why it happened. And you froze, you know. So it's so important that you do not blame, and always believe and have faith and support them in what they're saying. Say to them, I hear you and I'm listening. Don't ever doubt or question. Everyone turned a blind eye, or everyone said, oh, I don't think it was that bad. So pay attention, listen, let them be heard. So sorry, that was a very long.
No, that's good. I think another thing that came to my mind was if we're talking about a child that's a product of rape, to let them know that, again, it's not your fault and it doesn't have anything to do. It's not like it's biological, because I know some kids would be like, oh, if I'm a product of rape, that means I'm going to do that. Like, no, it has nothing to do with your biology, anything like that.
There is no rape gene.
Right.
And I think,
okay, a little lighter question.
I just think the communication with this whole topic, it's all about the parents communicating with the child. When the child comes to you, maybe one day they just pop up with an off-the-wall question that you didn't even see coming. Take the time out to listen. That's all adoptees want. We want to be heard. So much has been taken from us. So when we're it takes a lot for an adoptee to reach out, to talk, to ask, to trust anyone, you know.
Do you think that has to do with being told all the time, you're special, I chose you, all those kind of things? So maybe those things aren't the best way to make your child feel good. Like, is there different options? Because if I'm being told I'm special all the time, I feel guilty or I feel strange if I have a problem. Am I characterizing that right?
Yes, you are. And the thing that you've got to be careful of is, I was always told I was special. So when someone came along and said I'm special and raped me, Where's the distinction?
Right.
So you
Yeah,
need to be careful with that, because if you tell an adopted child or any child that they're special, predator, so where's the distinction in that, you know? And that's what I and it just came to me then when you were talking about that is like one of the biggest things that you need to worry about, because it can happen to anyone. When you are listening to your adoptee or even your biological children as a parent, one of the biggest things not to do, or as any human being, and one of the biggest lessons in life I learned, was when someone talks to you, do not listen with the intent to fix. Listen with the intent to listen. Even if you find it in every fiber of your being to go, I just want to help and fix and make you feel better, because I'm doing that right now. I am struggling because I'm like, I want to make you all better, and I want you to be like, okay, I want you to be okay, and I don't want demons to fuck you up, and you just want them to be good. But listen to listen. Don't listen to fix. Once you've listened, go away, do some research, then go back and say, hey, would this help?
That's good. Yeah. That's a really good point, because as parents, especially when we're in, become adopted parents, we're like, what can we do? What can we do? We need to help. We need to help. And there's certain things you can't help with, you can just listen. And then, yeah, like you said, go research and see if there is something, but definitely on the fly, it's like, just listen. Yeah. I think that's a really good point.
Researching too doesn't mean you're going to understand from their perspective.
Right.
And that's the most difficult thing, is that you can do as much research as you want, but the research isn't them. Every person is different. Everyone reacts in a different way. The information might give you an umbrella term, but it doesn't cater to that individual. And that is the most frustrating thing, because you will never know truly how to understand, because you're not them. And it breaks your fucking heart, because you just want to help and make it all better. But you know that that's almost impossible. So what they need to do is be there and tell them and show them. Don't just tell them, fucking show them proof that you're gonna be there, and fucking do it. Because that is the actions must match your words.
And sometimes when adoptees talk, we don't want to be fixed. We don't want your opinion. We don't want whatever you want to say to us. There are times we don't want, that's not why we're coming to you. We just want to be heard. And then if we want to ask questions, then you answer. But sometimes adoptees, we don't want you to fix us. We don't need you to, there's such a fine line with what we're talking about here, from overdoing it with an adoptee to where they're feeling awkward almost to a point. You have to normalize us. Okay. We're no different. Do a reversal. If it were you and you were the one who just came to you and said the exact thing that adoptee did, think before you react. And a lot of times parents don't do that, because a lot of times adoptees, like I said, we're not talking because we want you to fix us. We're talking because we want to know that you're there.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that makes sense. Going back to kind of like the special thing, I don't know if anybody watches This Is Us, but it definitely a lot of adoptive parents do. And there was a part, we were talking about sibling relationships, bio versus adopted, and how to mesh well. There was a part where Kevin, the white biological child, says to the Black adopted kid where he was always jealous because basically our parents never paid attention to me. They were just trying to make sure that you weren't feeling too adopted or too Black, you know? And so, and I, you know, there's always sibling rivalry. There's always stuff that comes up, but how do you balance something like that where you're not always like trying to fix it or trying to make sure that they don't feel too adopted, you know, things like that. And when your kids don't look like you versus your biological kids, what are some of the things that maybe you thought of that were like, okay, my parents should not have done that, you know, or I'm glad they did this kind of thing?
Good question.
I know with me, my adopted brother is 20 years older than me. Okay. So we would butt heads like a normal siblings would. Okay.
Yeah.
But he would throw out of his mouth, or my paper mother would throw out of her mouth, "Thank God you're adopted." Okay. My brother, when he would get mad at me and we would bump heads, "Thank God you're adopted." Well, then this is what happened. I turned around one day after I got tired of, you know, letting him know that this hurts my feelings. Please don't say that to me. So the last time he ever said those words to me were 8 years ago, because I turned around and I looked and I said, "You know what? Thank God I am adopted and I'm not of your blood and I'm nothing like you."
Yeah.
And when an adoptee gets to that point, we're done. We're done.
Understandably. So did your mom ever correct him, or like, since it happened multiple times, I'm assuming she didn't?
Yeah. Just, you know, the difference between back then and now, there was no education for these parents. Okay. I was a purchased child, but there was no, it just was what it was. You know, I mean, there was no education, there was no counseling, there were no classes, there was no social media, there were no tools. You know, children were to be seen and not heard. You know?
Right. I think the point that we talked about before goes to this. I don't know if it was recorded or not, where don't make the adopted child the trophy. Yes. Because that right there is like, hey, you're more different, and the parents are saying, oh, you're so special, and we're not. Yeah, I would imagine exactly. That would be a problem.
One of the things I want to say is that adoption is not Hollywood. I just want to get that out there.
Oh God, yeah.
And Hollywood, but yeah. One of the most important things with making that distinction and balance, it's really difficult to find that balance, because you don't want to isolate your adoptee, but you don't want to, you need to cater for their differences. And I would say one of the most important things is to not just talk to the adoptee, but include the whole family on the conversation, on everything. Because if you just talk to the adoptee, then how are the other children going to react? You know, it'll be like the Kevin situation. They were paying so much attention to you, they forgot about us. So mix it, blend it. If you're going to send one kid off to culture school, send the whole bloody family. If you're going to send the biological kid to, if you're going to send the biological kid to a private school, send the whole bloody kids to the private school. Don't just pick and choose.
I have to cut in here, because this is such a great topic, because this right here is what happened between my adopted brother and me. I went to preparatory school. I went to private school. I've never wanted for anything in my life ever. I mean, ever. And, you know, I grew up under the spotlight, and you know that, Ben. I've done more shows. I've been on TV. You know, my whole life was in the media. And what I found out is that the reason why my adopted brother and I were bumping heads so much is because he wasn't treated like that. I was the new baby, the new child that just got everything. You know, when my paper mother sent me off to etiquette school, it was jealousy on his part because he didn't get that. Okay. He told that if he wanted something, he had to work for it. I grew up with nannies, and that's how it was. When I left home, I didn't know how to do my own laundry. I didn't know how to cook. I like was lost when I went into the world because my adopted mother just overshowered me to the point with materialistic. You know, I remember I was 15 and I got my learner's permit, and we were driving down the road. Matter of fact, this was on one of the Dr. Phil shows that I did on one of the segments. We were driving down the road and I saw this beautiful Camaro, and I'm like, oh wow, isn't that a pretty car? It was in our driveway the next day. Like, I was 15 with a permit. I couldn't even drive by myself. And then, you know, for my 18th birthday gift, I got a Mercedes Benz. You know, but her own son did not get these things.
Can I just say, for my 18th birthday, I got a fucking VCR player.
But see, but what I'm talking about
is for their friggin' birthday. Jesus.
But see, this is what, like, I wish it were different. Like, I can't say this enough. Like, you know, like, I have clothes that cost more than people's cars. I don't care about that stuff. I wish that my adopted family would have taken the time to show me more love. I wish that they were there with me instead of a nanny raising me. I would do anything. I would have done anything I would have traded everything in my life to have that bond of, yeah, I've got a special recipe for my mom. You know what I mean? Or my dad taught me how to do this, but I didn't get that. And everybody looks at me and thinks, oh, you know, you grew up in this great lavish lifestyle. God, you know what? You only see what's out there. You have no idea what's in here and how much I missed out on my life.
As your adoptee gets older and they become an adult, we will always be your child. However, we are not a child anymore. And do not ever, as adults, when they get to adulthood, treat them differently. Don't let one sibling do one thing and the other can't do anything, you know. Don't let one go to the freaking cupboard and get food and don't make the other one wear fucking slippers. You know what I mean? Like, it's why?
This one has more sores or
exactly. And it's like, you feel like fucking poison when they do that. And it's like, why are you treating me different? And when they blame it on your past, it's like, you are not your past. And that's another thing that I want to say as well. Do not judge, and I'm talking in general here, whether biological or adopted, do not judge your child on the past things that they did. They are not their past. They are completely different people. So do not judge their past to your present, because people change and they have the ability to change. So do not treat your child like they are your past, because I can tell you they will resent you and it creates a wall between you. And yes, they may love you, but they will see that as rejection. And when a child feels rejected or an adult feels, a child doesn't know what to do with that rejection. They just think that's normal because we're adopted. We got rejected by a biological family. But when an adult feels rejected, that has consequences because we're old enough to say, you know what, fuck this shit. We're not going to put up with that anymore. Now I'm an adult. I have a choice. If you're going to treat me like this, fuck off. Do not treat them different in that sense because, like I said, we are your children, but we are not the child anymore. Make that distinction.
Exactly. And that is why I left home and got married when I was 17 years old, because I wanted some sort of normalcy in my life. And like I said, when I got married, I had no idea how to cook, clean, do anything for myself. I was helpless. I was thrown out into the world, literally helpless. I thought that the way that I grew up, I thought that that was normal. That's the way everybody grew up. And I resented my adopted mother so much that when I left at 17, I did not speak to her for 10 years. Because when I went out into the real world and I found out that, wow, I absolutely did not grow up normal. You know, like I'm looking at families now, what real families are supposed to look like and how much I missed out on and how she never prepared me for the real world. You know, prepare that child for the real world, the real consequences that they're going to face. Give them that gift. That's a gift that money cannot buy.
There is a big difference also too, and I want to go further with that, is that there is a big difference between tough love and love. And there's a difference between being independent and have everything done for you. And as parents, I think it's extremely important to be able to not always give your child tough love. Give them the nurture that they need. Because when you constantly give tough love, it's going to make them feel like they just have to fend for themselves. And it's like you've been thrown to the wolves, knowing that you're always going to be supported, but having support, but being shown tough love is completely different.
Well, I personally, as just someone who's a parent in this era, I hear the word tough love and I'm like, I don't see how that would work for an adopted child. You know, because it's like they're already coming from being rejected and tough.
Yep.
You know, to me, it's like, why? I don't understand why that would work, you know, and I feel like you can do all the research and you should do all the research of all the different things and have that as a base. But when you get that child that you don't know, you need to get to know them and see what works for them and have a strategy, but have a backup strategy because, oh, they told me this was working. It's not working. What do I do? You know, so to me, and I feel like what a lot of parents in this era have learned is, you know, especially if you get a child from an orphanage or something like that, where it says the child's 5. Well, really the child emotionally and all that is 2. So you start at 2 and then you eventually, as that child specifically grows and you can see how they're maturing, you go along with that. Like you don't have like, I'm adopting a 14-year-old and I'm going to expect her to be a 14-year-old. Well, no, she's probably like an 8-year-old, right? And let's see where she is at, not where I think she should be, and then find out where she wants to be and help her make her own goals to where she will be happy, not where I think, okay, you're 14, let's get some A's in 9th grade. And you know, like, because we got to normalize it. Well, there's the normalizing things for the child. And then there's what your idea of normal society should be. Right. And so to me, it's like this tough love is like, one, if you don't even know this child and you don't even know what they've been through and you can guess, and it's pretty tough. I don't see why you would start with tough love. You know, like, why would you be like, you're 14, people are going to treat you like you're 14. Let's treat you like you're 14. This child doesn't know you. Right. So to me, it's like, find out who they are and what they've been through and where they are at before you go, you're going to be 14 now.
And
Does that make sense?
When the camera off, we spoke a bit about intercountry adoption and it being different to a domestic adoptee. Now, one of the big differences about intercountry and interracial and domestic adoptees are, with domestic adoptees, you're already in the same country. So obviously, you know, there are certain things that culture does. When you get an intercountry adoptee and bring it into a first world country, it's different. They're not, all the rules do not apply. It is going
There's a huge learning curve for the child.
Exactly, but also for the parents, because it's so difficult to understand that you can't just take a child from a different country, put it in their country and go, all right, now be like us. Right. There is so much learning to do from the parent side, and there is so much learning to do from the child side. And the thing is, parents are going to get it wrong, and that is okay. Do not worry that you're going to get it wrong, because if you don't fuck up, there's something wrong. You're doing that is the wrong thing. And one of the biggest things is, if you're a parent from the older generation that now has older adoptees, and you turn around and say, we didn't have that education back then. No, you didn't, but you have it now. And you can still learn now. You can still learn what to do better now and do better. Just because you didn't have it back then does not mean that you don't have to stop learning. Learn it and do better. Because I can tell you now, if you can say that you didn't have it back then, but there's a lot more around now, then learn a lot more around now and change your ways. Because the older generation, for some reason, are so stuck in their ways, and they think that, you know, it's like when parents say no, and I mean no. That no is not an answer. Explain yourself. If you say to a child, no, you can't do that, that's final. I've said it. I've made my decision. That's not an answer. Why? Why? Why do you say no? You know, no, because I said no is not a fucking answer. Explain, talk, communication. Communication is fucking key in every fucking relationship.
Yep.
Just want to say that.
And you know, Julie, there's something I want to touch that you had spoken about maturity level. I left home, you know, I was a straight A student because I had to be, you know, not because I wanted to be, but because it was required of me. And I had all the smarts in the world, but I had none, if that makes any sense. Okay. So my maturity may have been 17 when I left home, but trust me, I was still a little child who needed nurturing, who needed to be taught things. Just because on paper I was 17, when I left home, I wasn't 17. I was more like a 20-year-old mentally.
That's why you get all very old. Sorry.
No, but that's such a good point, because, you know, adoptees, that's just such a good valid point about, you know, about a 14-year-old and where they're really at, you know, emotionally, because just because I excelled because it was drilled in my head that I had to, didn't mean that I emotionally was at the same academic level that I was with books and paper. Okay. And there's a separation there of book smarts and the emotional side in here. Okay. This can grow, the brain can grow and be fed. The heart sometimes doesn't grow with the brain. And those emotions are left back somewhere when we're 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yes, you said it. I want to say this. There is a huge, huge difference between emotional intelligence and academic intelligence. And one of the biggest things that I noticed in the adoption community is that 99% of adoptees, adult adoptees, regress when they get told no. Because why? In our minds, we regress back to when it all got fucked up. I think people who have been through complex trauma have a much higher emotional intelligence than academic intelligence, because we see through a different lens, and cannot compare academic people to emotionally intelligent people, because we are wired completely different. And that is one of the biggest mistakes parents make, is when if you have one child that is so academically smart and one child that is so creative and emotionally smart, do not compare the two, because it's completely different. They are so intelligent through both of those intelligence. So just because you're not academically smart does not mean that you're not smart. Just because you don't have a job doesn't mean you're not smart. Doesn't mean you don't have potential. Sometimes, and I honestly believe this, I truly believe this, emotional intelligence is so much better. It gets you further in life than academic smarts. And that is one thing that parents focus on, and that's where they put the pressure on the child to go to college, to finish your schooling. Look at all the big names like Bill Gates and, all them. They dropped out of school. What does that tell you? So, I mean, comparing my siblings and they all finished school. They're all academically smart. Yes, they're emotionally smart, but there's a difference between myself and them. The complexities of trauma that I've been through heightens my level of emotional intelligence. We understand people better. We understand emotions better. We understand, like, for instance, addiction better. Because we've been through it. We understand sexual abuse better because we've been through it. We understand the things that you will find there is a very big common denominator with people who are emotionally smart. They've normally gone through trauma, whereas academic people, some of them have gone through trauma, but that's how they deal with their trauma, is they will go down the academic route and make themselves successful and have careers and all that stuff, but then break down later on in life. Whereas the emotional intelligent people, they break down when they're younger and they constantly suffer with those problems, and they're delayed in life because they're dealing with those traumas. So when they get to their 30s or 40s or 50s, or even sometimes 60s, 70s, that's when they will gain some sense of academic smarts, because they've dealt with their traumas. And just by dealing with traumas doesn't mean you forget about it. It means that you get to a point where you can go, this doesn't control my life anymore, and I think I'm okay.
Absolutely.
And that's the biggest thing about trauma that people don't understand, is when you try and work through it, doesn't mean you're going to forget. Even if you get to another point, if you get to the other side of your trauma, that is okay. It's okay to allow yourself to feel okay. It doesn't mean that you forget. It just means that you got to a point where it doesn't control your life, and that's healthy.
That's awesome. I like how you ended that. That was very, very good. So maybe one question, and I know this probably, you're going to hate this question, but it's something that comes up a lot. And it's a lot of the reason that parents won't go to adoptee-led groups or groups where adoptees have a voice is because this whole concept of there's the happy adoptee and there's the angry adoptee, you know, where, and labels are ridiculous, but this is what happens. And they all get afraid to see the hard side, the unhappy adoptee, because my kid's not going to be unhappy. So I don't need to hear this, or don't tell me I'm bad for adopting and all those things. So, and yeah, sometimes it's really, really hard to hear. And I'm of the opinion that it should be heard so you can learn from it. I don't like getting attacked, right? I mean, I don't think that's okay. But I forgot what my question was. Well, I guess maybe, do you feel that there's no such thing as just a happy adoptee and a happy adoptee? There's the out of the fog, in the fog, whatever. Like, what are your thoughts on all that? And so I guess not to, so people understand that, like, you know, I can listen to these things so I can learn from them, and my kid's not going to be the unhappy adoptee, you know, things like that. What are your thoughts about all that?
I want to go first.
Sense.
Sorry. I want to go first on this one. So, first of all, the biggest myth about adoption is there is no such thing as a happy adoptee. We may seem happy. We may seem like it's all rainbows and fairy tales. But under this, it is the exact opposite. And the adoption community gave the notion of happy adoptee and sad adoptee because the majority are angry adoptees. And if you were to come into the adoption community like I did as a happy adoptee, it's because I wasn't aware of the issues that I had. It's because I had no fucking clue where I denied everything about my adoption. And I was educated by adoptees about my trauma, and I began to understand my trauma. Now, as for the fog, no one has a right to determine, no one else has a right to determine where you are at personally with your own traumas. The adoption community came up with in the fog because the majority are angry. No one has the right to tell you their own opinion that you are unhappy, that you are an angry adoptee, that you are a happy adoptee, that you are denying your problems. Every person is different. Every person is at different levels and different stages. So when an adoptee labels you as in the fog, I call the biggest bullshit, because it's none of their fucking business, and they don't know what you've been through. They don't know your life. They don't know how far along you are, how far less you are. It is your own personal journey. And I forgot the question.
No, I mean, that's basically the question, like how you feel about it. So that's good. And like debunking the whole myth of like, either you're a happy or you're angry adoptee, or because I mean, people are different from day to day.
I lost my train. You go, Diana.
You know, when I see the happy adoptee, the angry adoptee, I'm confused by even what that means, because adoptees we're people pleasers, most of us. We want to make sure that, we know that our mom and dads aren't around anymore. And, we're kind of confused about what happened, what was wrong with us. So we're people please. So we want to do everything that we can to please our new parents, because we don't want you to give us away. Because how do I know that you're not how do I know 100% that you're not going to put me in a car and you're just going to be tired of me and you're just going to go give me away to another family? How do I know that, you know, you're just not going to give up? So here to the world, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be that happy girl for you. And, you know, because I want your approval, because adoptees, we seek approval. We seek validation. It's why I don't know, but I don't understand the angry adoptee. I'm not an angry adoptee. I'm a real adoptee. I talk about the real thing that matter, the trauma that has gone into my life. And I said a long time ago that my biological mother, I know, carried the same amount of pain that I did. I know that it must have been very difficult for her. Whatever was going on in her life at that time, I had to forgive, and I had to put myself in her shoes. I had to put myself in a place of, could I have ever taken one of my children and just abandoned them in a bar? My biological father, you know, I didn't get to meet him at all. I'm sure that the weight of the world of me was on his shoulders. Just because biological parents give up their children, abandon their children, does not mean that they don't carry the emotional hurt. And I think that all too often, I guess the angry adoptee, they haven't come to terms with that yet. You know, they haven't come to terms with, there was a lot of pain. I mean, imagine abandoning your child. Imagine taking your child right now and just taking them to a Walmart or anywhere and just leaving them there and walking away. Imagine what that would do to your mind. That's no different than the biological, you know, family who made a decision to give up the child, abandon the child. They did whatever the reasoning was. They had their reasons, but it didn't mean that they didn't hurt. And I know that my biological parents, I know that they were hurting. And when I accepted that, I understood a lot more, you know, and I am a grateful adoptee. I am grateful. And, you know, adoptees need to understand, and I speak about this a lot. I'm here today. I'm alive. I have a purpose. I help people every day. I am a good person. But you know what? Had my biological parents decided maybe to throw me off a bridge, throw me in a dumpster, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have the opportunity that I have been given in my life to make a difference in the lives of other people, helping them to understand, you know, the adoptees side. There's a lot to be grateful for.
I'm going to do the opposite right here and say that the word grateful for me is hurtful, because that was one thing that I always got thrown in my face is, you should be grateful. You should be grateful. At what point do we turn around and say, when can I stop being grateful? Do I have to constantly never disappoint you? Do I have to constantly be on my best when I'm around you? And
I understand that.
Do I have to always be perfect in your eyes to be grateful? So I hate the word grateful. It's
And I understand that, Ben. I totally get where you're coming from.
Not to,
yeah.
I
didn't mean that. I know, like,
no,
with the adopted.
there's the thing. You do not undo what you said. And I, in no way, shape, or form, push your voice down on that, because that's your experience and this is my experience. I just wanted to share my experience. But that's a perfect example of apologizing because you feel grateful. Right there was that perfect example, and you shouldn't have to apologize for that. And that is the one thing that the adoption community almost brainwashes us into doing, is being sorry for being grateful, being sorry for being happy. No, fuck that. You be you, you be strong, and you be you, and you own your story, you own everything, you take accountability for everything, and you never apologize. But my question was, when do we, where's the end point? Where's the cutoff point to, we don't have to constantly be perfect in your eyes? Because if we do something wrong or one thing wrong, automatically we get our past thrown in our face, or we're not the good adoptee. So when hold your biological children up to that standard as well, you know.
Right.
That's what hurts me, is if I was to speak out, then I'm the ungrateful one, because the biological child, if they were to speak out, it's different. They don't have to worry about, you know, living up to those expectations, because you adopted me and I'm not living up to your standards of why you adopted me, and you're not getting your money's worth because I'm meant to be the perfect child because you adopted me, you know?
Well, and I think that's so important for the parents to understand that there has to be this balance, right? Because all my kids, biological or adopted, I want them to be grateful for what we've given them, but I don't want them to feel grateful that I adopted them or birthed them. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? And I understand that my adopted child might feel that way because of their past and how that they're here now. You know, there's this whole savior complex a lot of the time. So I think it's very important for parents to make them understand that, like, that was not your choice. That was my choice, right? I adopted you. And there's no such thing as you need to be grateful for that. I don't know what would have happened to you. You don't know what would happen to you. That nobody knows, right? This was my choice and not yours.
Yeah. And on that point,
there's no need for you to feel grateful.
Exactly. On that point, I quickly want to say too, and I want to concrete as well, because I know for a fact that there are parents going to be sitting there going, you should be grateful, because where would you be right now? Now, this is the thing is, and this is what I think in my mind, my demons in my head are saying to me every time I say I hate the word grateful, and I talk about this because it makes me feel guilty for saying this about my parents. But the thing is, I am thankful, not grateful. I am thankful that they gave me a life. I am thankful that my life in India was horrible and they pulled me and took me away from that. I am thankful that they gave me education, food, and love and support, and were always there for me, always. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying that they were bad parents. I'm saying that they were fantastic parents that armed me and loved me and supported me. However,
that's their job too.
That is the parent's job, no matter if they're biological or not. And I am thankful that they did that, but I'm not grateful. I'm thankful.
I'm glad you made that distinction, because it's their job. If you're not signing on for that job and expect something out of it, you're doing the wrong thing. That's a child. You're not supposed to expect anything out of a child. And again, it wasn't the child's choice. And it goes back to what a lot of adoptees said, and what Lynette said about people pleasing, because you're worried that you're going to be sent back or you're going to do the wrong thing. And I think that's something that parents really need to attune into when it comes to having their adopted child. So many parents are like, the first 6 months, it was so great. They were so nice. He wanted to clean everything. And I'm like, why does he want to clean everything? Why is he being so nice all the time? Where is that coming from? Something happened and now he's just not doing those things anymore. God, it's the honeymoon period is over. And you're like,
Kids don't
Why do you
have
think that
honeymoon
is?
periods. Kids do not have honeymoon periods.
You know, the whole thing, when I said that I was grateful, I want you to understand what I was saying when I said it. I am never grateful to my adoptive family. Okay. I'm grateful for me, for all that I've overcome. Okay. Not to them. Fuck what they did. Okay. They purchased me. Okay. I'm being honest. Okay. I will never be grateful for that. I didn't do anything to be grateful for. Thankful, yes. But today, as a 50-year-old, I'm grateful that I healed myself. See, adoptive parents, you cannot heal an adoptee. You cannot heal us. We have to heal on our own. We've got to get to the point in our lives where we accept things mentally, we work through them. You know, I'm a suicide survivor. You know, I'm lucky to be here, but that's where I was on the brink of that unlovable, abandoned. Nobody's going to love me. You know, I had to work through that. So the only thing and the only person that I ever say that I'm grateful to is to myself, to the inner me, that little girl that lives inside of here that survived the hell of the trauma of basically being a product of adoption. So I'm grateful to myself, but I'm not grateful to the family. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Bye, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Bye.